Dimon, you've been CEO of JP Morgan for almost 2 decades. Can you explain why crypto is such an attractive financial tool for terrorists, drug traffickers, and rogue nations?
I've always been deeply opposed to crypto, Bitcoin, et cetera. You pointed out the only true use case for it is criminals, drug traffickers, anti-money laundering, tax avoidance.
You almost got to laugh, right? There was never any crime until crypto came on the scene. And it's so crazy, right, to see bankers and politicians, usually at each other agreeing on this one. Crime, wow. In fact, some will say crime will go down if you start to, use a public ledger. The bottom line, though, is the question that we need to be asking is why? Why are they so afraid? Maybe it's because the system that's being propped up by fiat currency is a house of cards. Joining me now, Pomp Investments investor and Anthony Pompliano. Pomp, just your thoughts on that. I mean, I cracked up because he's like, why do these terrorists love this stuff? Well, they also love pallets of billions of dollars that, that you give to them as well.
Look, I think that you nailed it, right? Bad people are going to do bad things regardless of the tool. The fiat system is full of plenty of people doing bad things. The banks themselves have done plenty of bad things. JP Morgan over the last 15 years paid $39 billion in fines. The top big banks over the last 20 years or so, they've paid about $300 billion in fines. But also remember, politicians. We have a politician here in New York who was just charged with wire fraud and credit card fraud, right? Yeah. And so bad people are going to do bad things regardless. Now, why are they scared of it? Well, one is there might be a lack of education. That would be the nice way to think about it. The other way is they're threatened by it because it's competition. And if we know anything, big companies love to use regulatory capture. And the best way to use regulatory capture to compete against someone that you fear is to get them to make rules that say you can't do that here. And so Jamie Dimon wants to go ahead and stamp out crypto. He has a crypto division. If he feels that strongly about it, then shut down your crypto division before you go after everybody else.
Right. It's a small thing. Just in case this thing works out, at least we have some exposure, right? But I thought when she initially started speaking, I really thought she was going to say, how come it's performing so well? And that's, to me, the question is like, what's going on? Because this was a hell of a test, particularly for Bitcoin. Gold's made a pretty good move, but let's face it, Bitcoin, I think, has really separated itself and has established itself this year more than any other year that I can remember as being a quote unquote legitimate asset.
Yeah, I mean, look, gold definitely has hit a new all-time high. That's great, but it's only up about 13% for the year. The S&P is up 19%. So if you're not outperforming the S&P, you can't really celebrate. Now, on top of that, Bitcoin's up over 150% to start the year. And a huge piece of it is just the market is illiquid. 70% of all Bitcoin in circulation has not moved in a year. So if you have people who are crazy enough...
That's because people don't want to sell it.
Of course,
right.
But not only are they not selling, as the price moves higher, more and more of them are holding it. Normally, you see the opposite. As price rises, people sell into the strength. So what you have is people are getting more conviction. On top of that, if you go and you look at retail, this is defined by people who have 1 Bitcoin or less in their wallet. They're actually buying up more Bitcoin in the market than what's coming in on a net new supply on a daily basis. So you have retail alone is pushing the price up. And then you get institutions, ETF speculation, people trying to front run a interest rate cut. And this thing is only going to continue to run over the next 18 to 24 months.
You got governments. El Salvador is profitable on their Bitcoin. Argentina just had elected someone who says this, you know what, get rid of the old system, bring in the new system. And speaking of that, you wrote and you've talked about stable coins saving the treasury market. How would that work?
Yeah, so if you look at the treasury market right now, it's supply and demand. And right now there's a big supply coming in and there's not as much demand. China and Japan used to be 22% 10 years ago. 22% of all treasuries were held by China and Japan. Today, that number is 7%. People who were the dominant buyers of treasuries that we could count on. The United States knew we could always go to them and they would buy our treasuries. They're not as interested as they used to be. Now, they're still big holders, but that interest is waning. And so when you say, well, where is demand going to come from? Stablecoin issuers today are the 16th largest holder of treasuries. So you look at this and you say, wait a second here. If this trend continues, China, Japan, and other countries who have historically bought our treasuries are going to continue to decline. And we're going to see this net new demand come from the digital asset space. And I think that they're going to eventually be a top 10 holder of treasuries. Why are we going to ban a top 10 holder of treasuries? That makes no sense. And so I just think that as treasury market is down, TLT down 22% in the last 5 years, we need buyers to come from somewhere. And if it's going to come from the digital asset space, so be it.
So before I let you go, then, do you talk targets at all? It's a million, 200,000. And what are we looking at Bitcoin? What's in the back of your mind?
Much higher. Yeah, look, if you go back to 2020, I wrote out and I said, look, it's going to be rocket fuel for Bitcoin because you're going to get interest rate cuts. They're going to print money. You're going to get the halving. We're setting up for the exact same thing. Interest rates are a little bit higher than they've historically been over the last 15 years or so. They're going to have to print money and return to loose monetary policy. You're going to get the ETF approval sometime in Q1, and then you're going to get that halving in the beginning of Q2. So when you see that as a demand shock, a supply shock, Bitcoin's price has to go up to accommodate everyone. And I think that this rally is just the warm up for what's going to happen in this Bitcoin bull market.
All right, buckle up, folks. Pomp, you're the man. I appreciate you.